good, everyone, and welcome back to another reaction video. Today we're reacting to Did Fazbear Really Steal Everything? And I'm thinking this is more about the Mimic's tale on how, in one of the tapes that was mentioned in one of these theory videos, that Edwin mentioned that Fazbear took everything, something like that. I'm not going to go word for word, because honestly, I don't think I can do that, but essentially that's what it means. Basically, the mention that Fazbear took all the stuff that Edwin has made, created, and so on, and yeah, that's what I'm thinking when it comes to this. So, yeah. That's what I think when it comes to the matter here. It's just, did they really steal everything? Or is there something left that was really important that could change everything?
Everything we've known about FNAF was a lie. Or was it? On the surface, it seems like our old favourites, William and Henry, didn't actually create anything, and instead just stole it all from newcomer Edwin Murray. But how much of that is really true? And what if I told you, theorists? The answer is entirely up to you. Hello, Internet! Welcome to Game Theory.
Well, I think anything related to Chica's party world and any characters that aren't Freddy and Bonnie are stuff that Edwin made. As for the creation of Freddy and Bonnie, I do think that William made the two. Like, without a doubt. And I don't know. Then he, when he worked with Henry, he got the help to, essentially do all the, well, basically he had him be the main person to, and I'm talking about Edwin being the main person to create the animatronics with the suit diagrams that William made. You know how they use the actual costumes for something that employees would wear. I think it's like that.
And welcome to our fourth and final episode in our Secret of the Mimic extravaganza. It has been a wild ride, loyal theorists. We've uncovered the truth about the Murray family timeline, we've solved the mystery of Mexes, and we've managed to figure out secrets of a previously suspected mimic, Sun and Moon. But the biggest question that I have yet to solve, and the main question I had going into this game, wasn't about the mimic, or Edwin Murray, or security breach. I wanted to know the truth about the origins of Fazbear Entertainment. William and Henry. These two characters we've known about since the beginning and yet know very little about. Where did they start? How did they create this empire? Who were they, really? But friends, nothing, and I mean nothing, could have prepared me or the rest of the internet for what we were about to witness.
Spring lock assembly may be required.
No! No! Are you kidding me?
Oh my god!
Henry didn't
Oh
even
my
invent
god!
the
Oh my...
To be fair, that reaction was several hours into stream, where all we'd witnessed so far was invention after invention that we thought had been a Fazbear invention for years now, only to discover that Edwin made it. Like the Data Diver, a device used to access certain points around Murray's costume manor that looks an awful lot like the Faz wrench we use in Ruin. Or what about the massive list of characters? Happy Frog, Mr. Hippo, Orville, Monty, Roxy, Foxy, Moon, Foxy, Chica, Music Man, Helpy, even the wet floorbots from Security Breach share similarities to the Cleanovac. They're all here in Murray's Costume Manor with designs, schematics, and costumes strewn around the facility. Edwin and his wife Fiona designed them all. It felt like everything we'd known over the last decade had been a complete lie. It was never William and Henry, it had all been Edwin. Or had it. See, while at first it definitely reads that way, there are clues hiding in voice memos, text logs, and just in the physical designs themselves that show us the truth is a little more nuanced. So let's jump into our unfinished helpful carts, friends, because we've got to get to the bottom of this and figure out whether William and Henry invented anything or whether they are just complete frauds. First off, there is one important thing we have to clarify. Did William and Henry actually steal Edwin's inventions? And the short answer is no. I've mentioned in a past few theories little tidbits of information about this, but while it was clear Fazbear had some shady business practices and were actively stealing employees trying to obtain company secrets, which is not totally legal, they never actually stole Edwin's intellectual property. Edwin was a contractor, and so they would have contracted him to make stuff for them, like the demo of Freddy Fazbear's Pizza that we see in the R&D department. And that whole process would have included contracts that decided ownership, which we sadly never get to see. I can tell you though, as a former contractor myself, typically those contracts favor the client, the person who came to you to be a contractor. When I would shoot or edit a video for someone, that would then go back to them and they would own the final product. I didn't own anything. But what about Chica, who was made for Chica's Party World, not Fazbear? Or Roxy and Foxy, who were built for Edwin's TV show idea? Those were definitely Edwin's, and Fazbear surely had no rights to them. Well, until they did. One of the text logs you can obtain is from Willie A himself, and while the message is cut off a bit at the start, the intention is very clear. Quote, software development and the entire MCM catalog. We would love to keep you on as a lead engineer. Although we now technically own the land, we would never touch the house your parents built. Afton was offering Edwin a position at Fazbear because he had just bought MCM, its remaining employees, the ground it's built on, and most importantly, its catalog of characters and inventions. Fazbear now owned everything. They never stole it from Edwin, they just stole all his employees, drove the business into the ground, and then bought the rights so that they could claim it as their own. But let's be honest here, that's kind of a small nitpick in this whole thing. The real issue here is that we believed Henry and William were these great inventors, and yet it seems like they just kind of bought everything and didn't make any of it themselves. How could Henry claim
trapped in prisons of my making
if they weren't his making at all? So let's take a look and try to clear things up. Henry may not be the originator of most of the characters we've attributed to him over the years. R.I.P. Chica was Henry's first theory, but that doesn't mean he didn't invent any characters. From the minute you step into Murray's Costume Manor, you will find one item that appears everywhere in the facility. Pizza boxes from Fredbear's Family Diner. Now, while we are visiting MCM, the place has been abandoned for a bit. But what that means is that while the place was active, so was Fredbear's Diner, which makes sense given Fazbear Entertainment was a thing and had the means to buy MCM in the first place. They need some way to make money. We also see Fredbear and Spring Bonnie on a number of posters throughout the place, identical to the ones we found in Security Breach. But notice what we don't see throughout MCM. Despite promoting posters for the characters of Fredbear's, we never see versions of Fredbear or Bonnie within the main facility. And that is because of this line.
Every one of my creations are available for purchase or lease.
For Edwin to be able to say that, he would have to own the rights to the characters. But the fact that Bonnie and Freddy are missing implies that those two characters were not created and owned by Edwin, but instead William and Henry. Edwin has posters on the walls because there's clearly a long-standing relationship between the two companies, and based on his audio log telling us that they should
Just hire some teens to wear the suits like we always do.
it seems like he has worked on the diner in some way. So the posters are just him promoting himself, going, hey, you know this successful franchise? Well, I helped make that. But he can't show any of the costumes or animatronics for Fredbear and Bonnie because he doesn't own the rights. They were created and owned by William and Henry. So nice big tick for them there. But that leads us into the big discussion around Fazbear.
Spring lock assembly may be required.
No!
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 hazards that could
Are
cause
you kidding
issues.
me?
Oh my god!
Henry didn't
Oh
even
my
invent
god!
the spring
Oh my
locks.
god!
Did Edwin invent the spring locks? Before this point, we've been under the impression that it was Henry who invented the spring locks, as during the Silver Eyes
True.
trilogy, we're pretty much told that outright. Quote, "These are spring locks, one of the first ones Henry made." But now in Secret of the Mimic, we see plenty of spring lock suits. We see messages about Edwin making them, and we even get to travel around inside them, which is kinda horrifying. However, there is one big detail that stands out pretty quickly, which made me reconsider whether this was another acquired contraption. The fact that we cannot be killed by the spring locks. Spring lock suits are notoriously finicky, causing fatal injury at the first sign of sudden movement or water, and yet we managed to fall through an entire floor and yet sustain no injuries. It's almost as if they are not the same kind of spring locks, and that is exactly the case. We receive a text log from Edwin.
So that's the case. The fact that they are spring lock suits is the thing, but they're just a different model, different brand of spring lock suits. So while Edwin can say that he made spring lock suits, he can't contribute to the fact that he made a certain thing of spring lock suits. I mean, he can say, in truth, he made a certain thing of spring lock suits. Alright. Fair enough. Wonder how that's gonna go in the end.
During the game that specifically talks about updating the spring locks to sustain water damage and be okay. There's also the fact that the original spring locks were designed to be both suit and animatronic, while the new ones seem to only really be suits. And finally, the versions of Fredbear and Spring Bonnie down in the R&D department, while looking somewhat like the versions we know, have coloured exoskeletons made of metal, rather than the felt-based material that would stain and discolour like we know from modern Springtrap. And to top that off, there's an audio log in the same area that talks about spring locks being used for a long time before this moment.
It would be so much easier to keep using the spring locks.
The fact that there have been spring locks used for Hen, while these new improved metal versions of the spring locks for Fredbear and Spring Bonnie currently only exist down here in the facility, it tells us that there are other spring-locked versions of these characters in existence, felt-based ones that use the old water damage-prone designs. So that's it, case closed. Edwin made the new spring locks, but Henry can still have made the originals, right? Well, I really wanted that to be true. Believe me, I did. But when Ash and I went back to find all the secrets on GT Live, we discovered this message on one of the Mrs. Helpfuls to Edwin from Fiona.
I'm worried about the new suit design. One of my costumers, Vic, nearly lost his hand today. All he did was spill a can of pop and the thing snapped shut like a bear
damn.
trap.
Fiona is worried about Edwin's springlock designs, and the one her team member was wearing does end up having an issue with water damage. It's almost like that text log we read earlier was a response to Fiona's request to check out the problems, because Edwin was involved in the creation of the original designs. This isn't the only time Fiona is worried about Edwin rushing out designs that later cause problems either.
You have a lot of new ideas and new projects coming in. The staff can't keep up with all your changes. But I think you need to step back a little and focus on one project at a time.
This is a pattern of behavior for Edwin. He sprints through dozens of projects, moving on to the next one so fast that his previous invention isn't fully finished, leading to a bunch of failures and returns like we see in the text logs. And so the idea that these springlock suits that were incredibly dangerous and faulty were also Edwin's creations actually makes a lot of sense for his character. And yes, there is a chance that the original springlocks were potentially a collaboration between both Henry and Edwin. But right now, I'm just not sure the evidence is there. The books say that Henry was the inventor of the springlocks, but that's a very different continuity. The games have never made that claim. The closest we get is
Prisons of my making.
but here, Henry is talking about the normal animatronics, the ones that Edwin never finished. And so you could plausibly say that Henry was the one who made them. Edwin did say that Henry was the one changing the designs.
I got the change order from Hen last night. Why change it now? Now they changed their minds when we're so close to final. The new concepts are frankly creepy.
But he never mentioned spring locks. That doesn't make this a retcon, it's just a realigning of our understanding between the different continuities of these characters, which is basically what Secret of the Mimic did with all of the book continuities. In the novel trilogy, Henry made the spring locks, but in the games, it was Edwin. Who knows, maybe it'll turn out to be Afton in the movies. But thanks to the company failing and Edwin's eventual demise, the new spring locks for Fazbear's characters were never finished. Fazbear just had to keep using Edwin's old designs, so I guess you could say that it was karma that got Afton in the end, in more ways than one. And speaking of good old Willie A, what did he actually do? I mean, we've always known he's a bit of a scumbag, so I don't think it...
Well, that's the thing, though, with William. Because William just, you know... Sure. Okay, how do I go about this? To me, William did make something. I'm like, he's the sole person that made the Bonnie suit. Golden Bonnie. That is his creation. We know that for sure. So he technically made the costume. Because look at the fact of Glitch Trap. If Glitch Trap's costume is the original costume design of Golden Bonnie, then essentially, yeah, William made the original design. That was the original look for Golden Bonnie. There's nothing else to really say about it.
Lack of inventions would be all that surprising. But just like I think we can still credit Henry with the creation of the normal animatronics, I think there are a couple of things Afton can be credited with creating himself. Namely, the Funtime animatronics and the Scoop. In Sister Location and Pizzeria Simulator, we found blueprints for these devices, and they all have copyright attributed to Afton Robotics. Of course, we know that Foxy isn't his OC, that one firmly belongs to Edwin and Fiona, and the whole stomach hatch design definitely borrows from Edwin's Springlock designs. But the animatronic part, the weird wiry bodies, we don't see anything like that from Edwin. The Scoop also, of course, bears resemblance to the Springlock crane that we find in MCM, and that we then saw in Ruin. They have the ability to scoop something out of a costume or Springlock suit or whatever. But all the stuff about remnant injection and storage, that's all Afton, baby. Which means at this point, we're pretty even. Edwin did make a lot of stuff that we thought were Henry and William, but that doesn't mean they were completely incompetent or unable to make stuff themselves. However, there is one more thing that we need to discuss. One more invention that, if it was claimed by Afton, could affect the entire timeline as we know it. You see, everyone, and I mean everyone who played this game or watched someone else play it, have been very quick to point out the similarities between David Murray and Afton's son, the Crying Child. The most obvious similarity is their name. Thanks to a friend of the channel Hyperdroid and a handful of other theorists, last year we came to the conclusion that Crying Child's real name was also David Afton. But there's so much more to it than just a name. Their bedrooms look almost identical, and both of those bedrooms are in houses on top of a hill near a tree and near their father's work. They're both missing mother figures in their lives, with fathers who spend too much time working. One of the collectibles we get is David Murray's purple plastic telephone, the same one we see in David Afton's bedroom, along with a bunch of other similar toys. David Afton is famously scared of Foxy, having ripped off the head of the Foxy plushie, and his brother Michael bullying him wearing a Foxy mask. David Murray also is afraid of the pirate Fox, crying when Edwin uses one of the Foxy hand puppets on his first birthday.
Ahoy there!
Oh, honey, you're scaring him.
Both of them even have a birthday party for them coming up on a Saturday, only for them to die on that same birthday. Everything about these two feels identical to a strange degree, almost as if they're the same person. But obviously, as I've mentioned, David Murray is dead, so they cannot physically be the same person. But you know who is still alive and kicking, the thing that was created to become David Murray, M2. And this is where we hit an interesting fork in the road. There are two ways we can look at this information. There's the more literal approach, where the reason these two characters feel so similar is because they are the same character. M2 takes on the role of David, and Afton adopts it as his child. Or there's the less literal approach, the idea that these similarities are actually parallels designed to point us in the direction of a different kind of Fazbear theft, that they took more than Edwin's creations. They claimed his entire story. And because this is the big finale, I wanted to do something special here. Secret of the Mimic has been all about getting us to re-evaluate our past theories, our past ways of thinking. It showed us that we can't hold on to theories too tightly, that we need to be open-handed and explore all the possible options to us. And so, rather than stand here and try to convince you that one interpretation is right over the other, I wanted to present you with both options, explore the repercussions and flaws of each of them so that you can come to your own conclusions. So, on the left is the ending where David Afton is M2, and on the right is the ending where Fazbear is trying to rewrite history.
So there's two endings? That's... wow. Great. Now I gotta go and watch two videos. Jeez. And to think I have to do all this before the FNAF movie comes out, which is another reason why I'm reacting to this stuff. Because the FNAF movie's coming out, and some stuff from the Secret of the Mimic might be a part of it. Crazy how some things work, right? Jeez. So I hope you all enjoy this video. If you do, hit the like button below, hit the subscribe button to support the channel, support the content provided, and so on and so forth. Hit the notification button, be notified immediately when a video comes out. Honestly, this can go anyway. So I'm hoping that you all enjoy this video. And other than that, this is where things get a bit more complicated, in personal opinion. Very complicated. Because this leads to a lot of possibilities. I wonder which ending it is. Anyway, again, hope you'll enjoy, and I'll see you all in the next video. Bye.